Well, hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE. Tonight, we are going to be talking about and discussing and breaking down Tenet, the latest Christopher Nolan film, John.
Yes.
Just to let everyone know who follows us on YouTube and Twitch, this is going to be spoiler galore. So if you don't want to see this just now, just save this video for another day until you've seen the film, because we are going to get into major spoilers. We don't do non-spoiler reviews. We like to just go for it.
Yeah.
First time round, not holding back.
Steve,
no holds barred, as he said.
You can't review this movie and not delve into spoilers.
Well, John, I've watched a couple of reviews after we saw the film yesterday. We went along Sunday morning. I know that you'd seen it during the week, so you've seen it twice, so you'll be more well-versed in this film than myself. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was amazing. Everything I expected, but I'm sure we'll get into that with the movie review experience. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, John.
Steve, well, the first thing I was going to touch upon in this review was just the general build-up. Because, of course, there was a will it, won't it element to this movie and its release. It got delayed 3-4 times, I want to say, at least 3.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people perhaps pondering whether this movie would ever be seen in the theatre. Chris Nolan was absolutely championing the theatre-going experience. He was trying to save cinema, as we know it, in a year of real uncertainty.
Yeah.
I always thought this movie was going to hit the theatres, so when I actually got the chance to finally go into the theatres, first on Wednesday and yesterday, as you did say, it was a truly momentous moment. Just going back to a theatre once again and seeing it on the biggest screen with the booming music and sound system. So I don't know what your thoughts were. Did you ever feel there was a point, just briefly before we review the actual movie itself, was there ever a point where you felt this movie might not come out in theatres, that it may have to make that sort of downsized trip onto a VOD?
No.
Something like that?
No,
and what was your thoughts when you finally stepped back into a theatre?
John,
just as an aside.
Yeah, first and foremost, no, I didn't think it was ever just going to go into VOD. I knew that Christopher Nolan would stay true to his word that this film was designed for the theatre and that's how it should be viewed. I'm not saying it was his final say or anything like that. He's not got that much power. He's got a lot of power. He's a powerful man, but at the end of the day, it's not his decision. But I didn't have any doubts, John. The fact that it was delayed 3 or 4 times, I knew that they were holding out as best they could. Moving on to the movie experience, going back into the cinema since The Hunt, John, which we did in March. I want to say February or March, can't remember.
Yeah, it was around about pre-lockdown, just before.
Yeah. It was
maybe
great.
A week or so.
It was brilliant going back into theatre, John. I really missed it. I didn't realise how much I missed it. That's the longest I've been that I've not gone to the theatre since probably I was in my teens. So it's been a very long time, 7 months or so. Yeah. Big shout out to View as well, our local cinema in Hamilton, which is just in the outskirts of Glasgow. I felt, John, they could not do enough for the public. Just getting into, I think, just reassuring you, that they had things organised. Now, I get that we're in Glasgow, we're in Scotland, we're not in a densely populated area such as London or any other city, in the
New
UK.
York or LA or something
exactly,
like that,
so we are a bit more privileged in that sense. It's different, obviously. Logistics we're talking about here, so we're not saying that's going to be the case in every city, certainly not, but I just felt that they couldn't do enough for you. They had a lot of hand sanitising machines or whatever they're called, dispensers at your disposal. The social distancing was fine as well, and everything was marked down for obviously 2 metre gaps, and all the arrows pointing the right ways and stuff like that. Couldn't do enough. Yeah,
Stephen, it felt safe, and that's why I subsequently went back 3-4 whatever it was days later to experience this movie once again, because I did feel they had their shit together and it was a safe experience. But Stephen, speaking about experiences, let's dive into the actual movie itself. I love the opening of this movie. I love the fact that the sort of violin tuning up, I want to say, things from the opera, the orchestra, seep over from the actual introduction, the Warner Brothers title shot and the production company's title shot, right into the movie. You hear the violins and the strings. It stops, the conductor's ready to start, bang. John, what a start. Lovely booming sound. It really does. And this operation goes into force. You've got sort of terrorists on one side and Russian forces with obviously the protagonist, John David Washington, and his team of Tenet
It catches you off guard the way that they just burst into that arena.
Yeah.
Because you are quite, I don't know about yourself, but you're engrossed to hear the piece of music it's about to play, and then they don't even get that opportunity.
It's the wide shot as well.
It's fantastic,
of the arena and the sort of barricades going down. It was an amazing start to the movie. And Stephen, it starts off exactly how it means to go on in this movie. This is a 2.5 hour movie, and he doesn't muck around. And really early on, there's a visual clue, I've says, to one character's sort of overarching presence throughout the entire movie, and it hints at his tragic end. Because, of course, when you see the final shot, you can make that connection. First time I actually missed it, Stephen. Second time, I was really vigilant for little things that I'd missed. I seen obviously the bit on his bag when he was lying at the end, and then I seen it on the tag when he was walking away, when he had his conversation with the protagonist. Missed it the first scene, made sure that I seen it in this, obviously, second viewing. And there's so many different things in this movie that no one just puts in there, little tidbits that you perhaps miss. But if you're vigilant, you'll see them. And it's really, Stephen, I just love the way that he's handled this. There's so many theories floating around about this movie. We'll get into it later on. From little things that are happening in sequences like this. As I say, I really loved it. I loved the overarching sort of experience of the intro. I love the audio. I love the action. I love the Tenet organisation kicking into action. Stephen, I don't know about you, but I felt that this was a different version of the John David Washington protagonist character to what we got later on. They sort of make it out that he bit down in that cyanide suicide pill capsule and that it didn't work and he woke up. But he knew about this algorithm. He had a piece of the algorithm in his hands. Then we see him next. He's completely clueless about it. He's been inaugurated into what Tenet is, what this algorithm is. He thinks it's plutonium later on in the movie. So I think this could be a completely different version of the protagonist we see in this opening shot. Yeah. One who is more clued in, maybe one from the future or something like that. I have no idea. It's mind-bending, this movie, because we go back to the opera later on in the movie, so I'm perhaps talking crap.
Throughout the movie, I just kept thinking that we're going to have to review this, and it's going to be very difficult for someone that's only seen it once, never mind twice. But the opening shots, I mean, we can only talk about what we experienced and what we saw. Getting into the sort of logistics and the science of it is another day, I'm afraid, because I think we'd be here for about 4 hours just discussing that. But the introduction is a classic Nolan introduction. It's frenetic right from the beginning. It's very similar to the Dark Knight introduction. Very similar to the Dark Knight Rises. Just getting right into what the film's all about. It's a great opening sequence as well in that auditorium. I thought it was fantastic the way that the gas was just visually brilliant. The way all the audience members all just collapsed.
Apart from one old woman.
I didn't notice her, but it was like a Mexican wave in reverse. Everyone was sitting down or lying down.
Yeah, the head bobbed down and came back up. I'm like, terrible. Like that little guy on the ship in Dunkirk who's smiling at a Stuka bomber coming down. There's always a little goof like that in a Nolan movie. Always some shite extra lets the team down. But Stephen, obviously it sort of gives you a sense of what they're trying to accomplish. They're going here for an operation. They're trying to get a hold of a guy. It goes pear-shaped. The protagonist gets captured. He gets tortured. And I've says here, the torture scene, this just epitomises this movie for me. People have been saying this is not an emotional movie. It's a distant movie. The characters are hollow.
Yeah.
I don't agree at all. They're criticising the development of the main characters in this movie. And I think you agree with me. Feel like there's so much given away about these individuals in short little snippets. The way he handles the introduction to the main players is so nuanced. Yeah, it tells us so much about this protagonist guy and that torture scene. But he doesn't give his sort of...
for those people that say that, they've got to remember that Neil, the Robert Pattinson character... he's got to have that element of mystery about him for the story to work, which we'll get into later on in the review, John. And that doesn't go just for him, it goes for everyone, because if you only sort of focus on him being very mysterious, we get enough. There's not a lot of time. It's not a big cast or anything like that, but there's not a lot of time to spend too much on character development. It's not a Scorsese film we're dealing with here. It's a Christopher Nolan. It's a
thriller action.
With espionage, spies, heist. I think you actually
temporal pincer manoeuvres.
Yeah, exactly. You described it as a time heist film as well, John.
In a way, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so
the future's attacking the past.
There's too much going on in the film to really bog yourself down. You only need to know what you have to know, and that's the best way to get into this film for the storytelling point of view as well.
There's too much to going on for you to focus in on character development in a real big way, and that's what I'm saying. For me, he delivers character development in short little snippets. It's very nuanced, it's very intelligent. I got so much from the sequence where he gets tortured. For me, it tells me so much about his character. He's a good guy at heart. He tries to portray himself as a sort of cold figure who'll do what it takes, everything it takes to win the day, if you like. But you see it with his relationship with Kat and Max, that he has a good heart. He has a good heart. He's a good intentioned guy, and also that scene does perfectly show. Obviously, after that, we get his sort of indoctrination into Tenet. He's doing pull-ups and this windmill sort of thing, or whatever the hell you call it, wind farm.
That seems to be his trait. I've noticed he does that later on in the film as well.
Yeah, he does it. And again, it's sort of rocky. He's setting himself up for what's coming. Yeah. We get an introduction into the inverted technology too, Steve, and this sort of scientific figure. I can't recall her name. She played Fleur or something like that in Harry Potter.
Yeah, I'll bring it up.
And that was neat. A lot of people didn't like the dialogue in this movie as well, I have to say. Some people have been criticising it, saying it's a little bit wooden. It's not quite organic. For me, it does the job. She tells us a story. There's
two strangers meeting for the first time.
Two strangers meeting for the first time.
It is what it is.
There was a moment that did grind on me though. The protagonist saying something about Tenet. He introduced Tenet into a sentence, and it was just. I'm like,
I think the character's name is it Barbara? Is
Barbara?
It Clemence Poise?
Clemence Poise. That's the actor. I thought she delivered a decent enough performance for when she was in the movie. It was about 2 minutes. She was a sort of expositional figure. Early on, it told us there's something from the future attacking the past. It's temporal in its nature. If they get their hands on a nuclear weapon, it could be the end of time. Obviously, we don't know about the algorithm at this point, but it's just showing you the technology. We briefly see it in the first scene with the inverted bullet, which obviously Neil, we know now, sort of fired or something like that to take out the guy who was ready to kill the protagonist. But in this, we see more and more of it. The bullets dropping, just showing us and the protagonist, who's this, in a sense, our eyes to this movie.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on here? That then allows him. It imbues him with enough knowledge to go forth in the movie, hunt down Sator, hunt down, I think it's Priya.
Yeah.
Go off on the trail hunting for the ammunition to try and start putting together the pieces of the puzzle, which is this story, a very complicated puzzle at that. Stephen, what did you make about the first time we met Neil as well, though? I mean, moving swiftly on, I've not actually gave you a chance to speak about that inverted sort of sequence with the scientist. This is the standout moment, Stephen. One of the standout scenes for me, meeting Neil.
The inverted stuff, just before I go into Neil, it's more or less what was explained in the trailer. Let's be honest with you.
I didn't see the final trailer, incidentally, and it gave a lot away.
I didn't see it either, John. I wasn't too bothered. When a final trailer comes out that close to the release date, I don't normally go to it because it's 9 times out of 10 it will reveal too much.
Yeah.
The meeting of Neil. Robert Pattinson, who we saw, was it this time last year? We watched the Lighthouse. Was it start of this year? I can't remember. Lockdown's really mucked up our timeline.
It was about January, February.
That was the first film I saw him in properly, that I could appreciate his talents.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do in a very restricted film. The location.
Two
people. It's very hard to judge, an actor, but
descent into madness.
Be able to entertain you for those couple of hours in that kind of situation shows what good an actor he is, and obviously Willem Dafoe. In this, I loved the introduction. There was more to it than I was seeing. We obviously know that later on.
That line.
Yeah, I mean, there's just everything about it.
Vodka and a Diet Coke.
It just seems like an ordinary conversation, doesn't
it? Vodka?
It was. I think it was vodka. Can't remember.
Vodka and a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
You never drink on the job.
Yep.
Thanks. You're well informed, I think he says. Yeah, it pays to be in this job. I love that line, that interaction. I've seen it twice. It's stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But I prefer soda water. No, you don't.
Yeah. John,
everything about it, the score, Stephen, I just love the scene.
We've got a comment coming in from Peter Plumers. Hi, Peter, one of our excellent writers here at MBE. He says, excited to watch this one real soon. I'm just afraid I'll understand as much as I understood of Inception. Absolutely nothing.
Peter, You're in trouble, I tell you, because this is even more complicated than Inception. But look, it's not so complicated that you will be going down the rabbit hole. Believe me, if you watch it at least twice, the first time you may go over your head some parts of it, it's certainly the end sequence. Yeah. But if you watch it a second time, if you're lucky and you get it the first time, then well done. The second time, though, you will fully understand it. I'm hopeful what the hell's going on. Yeah. Certainly my second time, I was able to piece together that end finale, which I'll do my best to break down later on in this review. Yeah. But it's not that complicated. It's complicated, but it's not that complicated. No. It's classic Nolan, really.
It's one of these films, John, I can speak on only seen it once, is that for hours after the film, you will think about it quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But Stephen, what did you make about the score as well? Because look, in that scene, Goranson, this is my favourite piece of music in the whole the whole film. It's called Meeting Neil. Yeah. And what I love about it is some people have broken down this movie to the 9th degree now. If you reverse this theme, it mimics the sort of same synth notes that you see in the protagonist's main theme, which alludes to a relationship between these two guys. At that moment, you don't know it. Yeah. Unless you do. I mean, it's so on the nose. He's ordering drinks for him and whatnot, and there's a knowing glance. But Stephen, I love the scene. I love the music. What did you make about the Goranson score? Because we'll probably get into that just now. I loved it, man. He wasn't Hans Zimmer.
No.
Hans Zimmer was busy doing Dune, so he couldn't.
John, but this is the guy that's done Creed. He's done Black Panther.
He's done Mandalorian.
You know what to expect from him. You know, and I mean, he's not a Hans Zimmer, but that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that it's any less of a masterpiece. I'd have to watch this film again to really home in the score, John. Yeah, it kind of just went over me. I'll be honest with you when we do talk about the technical aspects of the film later on, but. There was a moment in that scene that just it fit, you know, just with the dialogue, two guys sitting together talking and just having that music playing over it as well. It was a perfect scene. It was probably one of the. I know we'll probably talk about standout scenes later on as well. Yeah. But I think that'll be more sort of the standout stuff, the action stuff.
Yeah, you've got big bombastic stuff.
But there is moments
really
like
quiet.
That. Yeah.
And that's why I can't understand people's criticism of this movie, Steve, when they say it's distant, it's emotionless. That music in that scene for me adds a layer of emotional stuff to it. I don't know what it is. It's so nuanced. Everything about this movie is nuanced, really. It's really effective. I love the score, I have to say. I've listened to it afterwards. I thought he'd done a great job, Goranson. He's an Oscar-winning composer. Yeah. It shouldn't surprise anyone, really. But Stephen, moving on from that, the assault on Priya's house. I can't recall her husband's name, but they're going after her husband initially. Again, I love this. There's so much little elements going on in here. From an action standpoint, the bungee ropes, stunning sort of action set piece, actually happened. John David Washington, terrified of heights, done most of his own stunt work, including scaling that building. And he says, Nolan says to him, or someone asked him in an interview, has this got you over your fear of heights? He says, I don't know, I'll perhaps have to try again at some point. And I think Nolan says, duly noted. So maybe if he works with Nolan again, he'll get him scaling, or maybe jumping off, doing a Tom Cruise sort of scaling up of ridiculous stunt work. You'll do well to top that sort of building scaling thing. But Steve, what did you make about the slick covert operation on the household? I laughed when it cuts to the security room. The protagonist says, there's no one here to help you. And Neil's in the sort of security room, and he tells one of the guys, eat up, don't let it get cold. He's clutching a curry. For me, that was hilarious. I don't know why.
I actually missed the line, but I remember it. I do remember the scene, John. But there was part of that in the trailer. It was the scene where they were running up beside the building, but it didn't make any sense in the trailer.
I thought it was inverted.
Yeah, it looked very strange in the trailer because it was out of the blue. But the fact that they were propelled onto the building as well with those bungee ropes as well. I laughed because I think the protagonist actually was stretching it at one point. You could feel the tension, the sound of it. I was like, "Oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt."
When they were firing it up onto the building as well, incredible, man. Yeah. And again, it was action heavy. That scene with just the sort of physical nature of them getting up, and it's a great expositional scene too because it brings Sator. I want to say it's Sator, Andre Sator or Sator. That's the first time you hear his name mentioned. That brings him into the sort of plot, if you like. And it sends the protagonist off to... And even now, I'm not entirely sure whereabouts it is that they go to. There's so many locations. I want to say Helsinki is one Oslo is another one.
There was so many, John.
Yeah, but it sends him off in a sort of mission to try and hunt down the wife. I think he goes to London first and meets Michael Caine. And this will be the point, Stephen, where we'll break down the first act of the movie in general. There's so much going on. We can't do it scene by scene, even though we'd like to. How did it fall for you is the first question I'm going to handle. How do you think Nolan handled the foundation of the story in this first part of the movie?
John, I watched
character development of Kat, and just... again, I feel she's the emotional soul with Neil in this movie.
She's a great character and a fantastic actor playing her as well. I felt the first part of the movie, first I would say third of the movie, played out like a spy thriller. You're better going into the film not looking for... I always felt the trailers kind of, I'm not saying missold the film in any way, but it made the film more sci-fi than it really was. That's just what I got out of it. But I went into this film yesterday just enjoying the ride, just enjoying it as almost like you said there, John, a Mission Impossible film. You know, having the espionage and the spy and the, just having these great action sequences.
I think that's the best way to do it,
the
Steve.
mystery around the character as well. And I thought it flowed fine. I saw some spoiler-free reviews prior to watching the film yesterday, and a few people were saying that they felt the first part of the first hour of the film was very clunky. I didn't get that at all.
No,
didn't get that at all.
Steve, I thought it was perfectly handled. The way it developed the side players in the story. Well, there's no real side players in this story. I'm talking nonsense. But I suppose the whole Max Cat thing is a sort of side element to the primary thing, which is to get this algorithm and save humanity from extinction or whatever. Yeah, extinction is the word I'm going to use. So I thought he'd done a great job of developing out Kat's sort of manipulative relationship with Sator, whatever his name is. The protagonist going in this, beginning his journey to save humanity. I thought he developed the sort of story well. Mm-hmm. The whole idea of the plutonium going to Stask 12 or something, I think the city is, giving you the backbones of the Kenneth Branagh villain. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. And then of course you have the plane crash sequence in that first act too. How you can say that's clunky is beyond me. You have the high velocity action of the intro, the quieter little tender moments with Kat, that amazing scene where he beats the living shit out of the Sator's men in the restaurant, in the kitchen. I was killing myself. Yeah, first time I seen that, and I seen you laughing as well, Stephen.
Yeah, the grater. Cheese grater was amazing.
When he takes the grater and batters him with it.
And he scrapes it along his face.
It's the fact he says, I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago, and he gets punched. He takes a lot of hits in this movie, the protagonist, which he doesn't need to take, and he sells them just to make himself look like a bit of a goon. Then he shows them who's boss, smashing them into glass and stuff like that. Yeah. It was almost like John Wick-esque. And then the fact he just buttons his suit up afterwards, that was amazing, man. And that was all in the first act of the movie. Yeah. Stephen, what did you make about Michael Caine's cameo? That's something, we'll get that out of the way. Slurred speech galore.
Yeah, I mean, he's an elderly man now, John. And you've got to remember it's been a good 8 years since he played Alfred in The Dark Knight Rises. He's obviously been in a lot of films in between both, but... I mean, he's getting on, but it's Michael Caine, for crying out loud. He's going to steal the scene when he's in the scene anyway, regardless of obviously the way he's having to deliver the words. But that is, he does, especially the suit he's wearing, which I thought was a very smart suit.
You're going to play a billionaire. Brooks Brothers isn't cutting it.
I thought it was a nice suit.
Use English or British, don't have a monopoly on, what was it? Snobbery.
Yeah. But as you said in the notes, John, it is a cameo. He's not in the scene for more than 3 minutes.
No, and he gives him the card, and that allows him to up his sort of clothing game. And by God, does John David Washington up his clothing game in this movie. John Smedley, I can't recall the first name, but Smedley polos, £95 polos. No one wears a polo better than this guy. Polo shirt.
You also made a good observation with the Robert Pattinson character as well. The way he was dressed. Yeah.
It's Chris Nolan.
Yeah.
The way Nolan wears his suits, he pokes the sort of lapel out and he wears that scarf.
Yep.
That is absolutely Chris Nolan's look.
Yeah.
It's almost like Chris Nolan wants to be Neil, but he can't be him because he's directing the movie and he doesn't have the acting chops. So he's projecting himself onto Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the first act, man. I think it had everything. That plane crash as well, man. We have to talk about that. Yeah. He actually bought a 747 because it was more cost effective. Took the engines off, sold them, and crashed into an airport building, a real airport building. I loved it, man. I loved the fact that the guy stole the gold bar as well. We've seen that in another movie. I can't recall which one it was.
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
That came into my head. when
they tossed that out.
Yeah.
And we've got Hamish Patel in there too.
John, do you know
who was brilliant.
In that scene, you know, when all the gold bullion was falling onto the ground and then the police arrived,
there
was actually ambulances going by. One of the ambulances are actually in the story later on in the film. It's just amazing.
It's little details like that, Stephen, you pick up on, which is amazing. That's why this movie for me has great rewatchability. Stephen, cinematography in that scene in the first act too, when the three men, I can't recall the Hamish Patel character.
You're talking about in the street. Right,
when it's rotating around.
I'm going to tell you about this, John. Right?
Brilliant, man.
It is brilliant, and it's a standout moment as well. For the sequence, but going into this film I was heavily paranoid. I didn't want to miss anything, so when that camera was rotating I was looking for versions of them around them. Didn't happen though.
Didn't happen. No. But it was an amazing shot.
It was fantastic.
From Hoyt van Hoytema, amazing cinematographer. We'll get into this guy later on.
Yeah,
stupendously talented guy, and Jesus Christ did he do a good job of putting this movie together. A hectic movie. Chaotic is probably the better word. Loved that shot though, and you made an observation, Stephen, that Hamish Patel maybe didn't prepare quite as well physically for this role as the two other guys. John David Washington, in his defence, is an ex-NFL athlete. He's an ex-running back. He's an absolute unit of a guy. And Pattinson mentioned that in press junkets. He's just got energy like a small child. Runs and runs and runs and runs. And he was sort of saying, I'm a mid-30s guy and I've just not got the energy anymore. But those two guys were in good shape. Yeah. Hamish Patel, slight belly.
Yeah, I didn't care.
And wearing a not John. What's his name? Sam Tyler. John.
Yeah, Sam Tyler jackets. Yeah, John
Sim.
Yeah,
that's where I was getting John from. But look, let's get the first scene or the first act of the movie over and by with. I loved it. I thought it flowed well. It's distinctly different to what comes later on. John, as it gets a little bit more.
I don't normally mention other reviewers and YouTubers, but Jeremy Jan says that he'd have been happy just watching the second part of this film, which I was surprised about.
Yeah, I think you need the yin to the yang.
Yeah.
People moan about being disconnected from Nolan movies, but you have to set the story up and the primary protagonist in the story and the antagonist, and he did it. And then you can then sort of envelop the audience in the story and then have the chaos at the end of the movie, and I thought that's exactly what this movie done.
Yeah.
Stephen, obviously, again, we get an unbelievable sort of cinematic shot when they head to, I believe, Italy. Because he makes a comment that young Max is away to Pompeii, but it's when the protagonist meets Kat on that balcony, overhanging the cliff. What an amazing piece of film work that was. Again, it spins out.
Yep.
Beautiful wide shot. And again, it's just setting it up. Sator, I'm just going to keep saying the two versions of that name. And perhaps one of the scenes which I feel could have been cut from the movie comes at this point. The boat racing scene. I felt it was unnecessary.
Yeah, it was.
I suppose it just shows what state Kat's in at this point. She feels, because we've completely scrubbed the whole Arepo painting thing, where she obviously bought the painting. Yeah. He's using it to manipulate her.
Yeah.
So we've kind of, and again, there's something in that, Stephen. Arepo, the artist's name, reversed as opera. Opera has a big part to play in this movie. So there's little details in that too. We completely forgot about that. He's emotionally blackmailing her. She's losing her child. She's going to jail if she steps out of line because he'll out her for essentially defrauding him for, I think, a counterfeited painting or something like that. So I suppose that boating sequence shows that she's got a bit of, I don't know, ruthlessness within her.
There's a good line.
She cuts him off the boat.
There is a good line later on in the film which actually was very important to both the characters when she was pretending to obviously play the younger version of herself.
Yeah.
He says a line, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but he says a line where the sort of resentment was more from you to me.
You know, I've loved you, always loved you more than you love me.
Yeah, that's basically.
And I hold you in high regard.
It was an excellent line because it kind of humanised him a little bit because he felt like a bit of a cardboard villain at times, you know, a bit of a 2D villain. Yeah. So lines like that are very important.
Steve, I was just about to get onto that. What did you make about the character padding for as I've says, a bastard of an antagonist? Because he is.
You say a lot more than that, John.
He's a scumbag. The man is a scumbag in this movie, and I think that speaks volumes for Branagh, because he ain't a scumbag in real life. So
no, he's a good guy.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
What did you make about his villainous performance? I thought he was quite a cunning guy. He was quite intelligent. He was always a step ahead. Because
there's a reason for that, though.
Yeah, because he's getting information fed to him from the future.
Yeah.
This, whatever it is, this evil version of humanity in the future wants him to succeed, to sort of wipe out. Stephen, I didn't realise this was about climate change as well. There's something happening in the future. Climate change was becoming an issue. They wanted to come back and sort of end humanity. That was the reasoning of that. That was a rationale. I didn't get that in the movie, I have to say. I read that somewhere.
Should have just got all those Infinity Stones and that gone. You'd have clicked out all that.
What did you make about him, Stephen? He was annoyingly always a step ahead. I've said those are the worst types of villains.
Yeah.
The ones that are always a step ahead, but they get their comeuppance in the end. How did he do for you? How was the accent? Because it was a very sort of broad Ukrainian accent.
Yeah. Listen,
I can't do it.
We know all about his Belgian accent, not French, Belgian.
What's Belgian?
Obviously, and what's it called? Can't remember.
Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. Yes,
Death on the Nile. That's the one. Yes.
Hercule
We
Poirot.
did the trailer reaction, but no, Kenneth Branagh is he's an amazing director as well. You've got to remember that. But he just adds weight to the film as well as a villain. He seems to play very good villains.
Jesus.
But. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory, the fact that, he's got the information from the future that's going to keep him 3 or 4 steps ahead of everyone else.
He's a very vigilant guy as well. We see that in the car chase sequence. When he spots something, inverts and goes back and deals with it.
Yeah.
When he tries to throw the little part of the algorithm into the car, he spots it. And when he reinverts himself, he goes back and takes it off him.
Yeah.
Basically says, you got my heart rate to 130. Which is more than my wife.
Well, that was a clue, wasn't it, throughout the film? He was obviously had this thing on his wrist, to check his heart rate, which kind of signified there was something up with him. He's he's obviously got health issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was good, and I thought that the dynamics between him and Elizabeth Debicki was fantastic.
Yeah.
You could feel the tension and the hatred between both of them at times. The fact that the character had this holdover as well was very frustrating. There's that sort of sad speech that she's talking about the lady that dives off the boat as well.
I love that. I envy that.
I kind of worked it out, but we'll get to that obviously.
I worked it out as well, Stephen. That was one of the ones that was on the nose.
But it was very clever. It was a nice thing to do as well. The fact that I think we can say that the person jumping off the boat was actually her.
Yeah. It is a spoiler review, guys.
So
we did say that.
Yeah, I mean he's just such a great actor, John, and I think he's everything I expected him to be in the film, and a bit more as well.
Absolutely, Stephen. I agree. I thought it was a great villainous performance from the man. Yeah, you're right though. The villain itself, I mean, he was a means to an end, really. He flitted in and out.
John, see the
time itself was the villain in this movie, in a sense.
Yeah.
The future.
The actual storyline is a very simple storyline. It really is a very simple.
I was thinking that
today. It's everything around it that complicates it. If you know what I mean.
Even the finale is very simple, and I will try and break it down when we get to it, Stephen. It's quite simple. It really is. It's just all the inversion stuff which complicates it. Some of the sort of superficial elements of this movie, but it is a very simplistic story. Future's attacking. They have to get the algorithm, take it apart, hide it, and stop the future from winning, in a sense. Yeah. And
stop him ending the world.
Yeah, stop him ending the world. And that's why Tenet is a thing. It's just who's started Tenet and all that nonsense, which gets revealed later on, which is slightly complicated. But we'll get into that, Stephen. The plutonium, I've says in brackets algorithm, because it's not plutonium-241 as he believes it is, that they're going to retrieve. I've says in Helsinki. I don't know if it is. Even now, I don't know the location. But Stephen, I love this. This is just like a classic Nolan sequence. They shut down a motorway or a highway, whatever you want to call it, for like 12 weeks to do this work. And I simply loved watching this. The two times I've seen it.
Is this the fire truck?
Yeah, they box the truck in.
Yeah.
Amazing the way they work it out. It's just the protagonist saying, get a car that looks fast but isn't. It doesn't look fast but is fast. It's a BMW. I don't know what that's about. Clearly a fast car. And it looks fast too. And we have to have a fire truck. I loved that sequence, man. I loved Neil counting it down. You're ready to go. And then the police coming in and just the way they deal with it all.
I laughed when they came in.
They're like, what is going on here? What the hell is going on? There's a guy trying to get out the car too. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And again, John David Washington done all of the stunt work in this. He was actually on the ladder, jumping really down and stuff. Yeah. I really liked it. What did you make about the early chase sequence? Because of course, there's aha moments, there's inversion and all sorts of crazy shit going on in this extended sequence, Stephen.
John, see when this film was first described to me, that there was going to be a lot of backward elements.
Yeah.
I just thought they were going to do that thing they did in Red Dwarf, the episode, I think it was episode 1 of season 3, called Backwards, where they basically just reversed the footage.
Yeah.
That's not the case. I know we'll get into cinematography and stuff.
Well, we can get it just now if you want, Stephen.
I probably would, because this is probably the sort of pinnacle of the man's skill in regards to creating that illusion, and it's not a simple reversal of the film, because you're getting cars going forward, you're getting cars going backwards in the same sequence, in the same shot, at the same time as well, at the pacing as well. It's so complex. I'm going to say this, I can't wait for this to come out in Blu-ray already, because I want to see the extras and how they did that. I hope they do reveal how that was done.
They have to.
I think it'd be very cruel and Chris Nolan not to include that in the extras, because I'm very intrigued to find out how they did that.
Well, I did see brief snippets of the fight sequence, how they worked out the fight sequence at the airport when it was obviously backward and forward.
John, we missed that bit as well, because that was...
Well, no, it's still to come.
Yeah, is it still to come?
Yeah, it's still to come.
The crab moment, I called it, yeah.
Well, have we missed it? I think it was
before. I think that was before the plane crash, was it not?
It was before the plane crash.
Yeah.
You're right. We missed that whole sequence. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And the holding the breath, 10 seconds, she says.
Yeah.
And the guy scampering out. I love that, man.
John,
in fact, you want me to help you? Yeah.
You know how those guns that were on the floor, and obviously the bullet holes in the glass? I knew who that was as well.
Yeah.
That was the first time we saw the sort of inversion from two sides of the same room, wasn't it?
Yeah, he says there's someone in here.
Do you know what it reminded? Yep, that's right.
And there's 3 different versions.
It reminded me of Portal. Do you remember when you used to shoot at the portal and then you'd look through the portal and you'd see yourself? Yeah. That's what it reminded me of. Yeah,
because obviously the first time you see this sequence, he's fighting with himself. You don't know that at that point it's a soldier.
Although the
bullets invert. It's a little bit taller. We'll say it's for the helmet though. That's what we'll say. Obviously Neil runs down the corridor, takes the mask off, and then he looks and you don't see who he's looking at, and he throws it. And then he runs back again. Yeah. And then also when that's revealed later on, that was an amazing sequence. And Stephen, because we are talking about the sort of inverted scenes, brilliantly shot.
You could actually talk about that later on, because it happens again. That's the thing. Again.
But the cinematography is just ridiculous to capture that. And the way the characters, the choreography, just amazing. And the fact he did film every scene backwards and forwards, absolutely incredible. The sort of ambition to take something like that on, I think only Nolan can get away with that in an independent movie like this, and have the backing of a Warner Brothers giving them $250 million. But yeah, I mean that sort of extended chase sequence, we get mind effery, Av says. There's inverted shit going on. They're looking through the fence, you see the guy with the mask. You've got that chamber, which is the inverter. We don't know that at this point. You've got the Sator character holding a gun to his wife. He shoots her and it inverts or something.
He's like, is that the one he's doing the countdown? Yeah. Yeah,
and there's like back inverted speech coming through. It's being translated. I loved that sequence. I absolutely loved it. And Aaron Taylor-Johnson was in the movie. I didn't watch the final trailer.
With a right Cockney accent.
Yeah, I did. What's it he says again, Stephen? This is oh God, he says something to the protagonist. This is cowboy shit.
Yeah.
Cowboy shit. I love that. I love Aaron Taylor-Johnson, man. I love the guy. He's a great actor. Every movie he's in, he's brilliant. It doesn't matter the size of the role. I didn't know he was in this.
No.
Missed the final trailer. So when I seen him, I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And he's a great little role in it too. I think it's Ives was the character name. But yeah, I loved that inverted sequence. Obviously, she gets shot. They have to save her. She's been shot by an inverted bullet. They go through inverted so they can get back, I believe. There's crazy shit going on here.
It starts going mental for the worst.
They get back to the airport to use the inverter machine and that to come back into real time to set up the finale. He goes back to try and get the algorithm part. Fails, obviously, because Sator discovers that he's flew into the car. But obviously, that's why he's saying it's cowboy shit. You're getting back out there. And Stephen, the sequence, when we see the protagonist walking out for the first time, the gulls are flying backwards, the puddle splashes back down. He's walking funny.
You can do that on TikTok.
Yeah. The car wheels spinning in reverse but moving forward. I loved it, man.
The driving bit was really weird. Yeah.
You can imagine trying to drive back in reverse. It'd be strange. Not reverse, but inverted.
Yep.
that whole sequence playing back again was an amazing. That's the first time we see a sort of flip shot of the same sequence.
The same sequence, yeah.
The car, the reveal that the silver car was actually the protagonist.
It was a Saab, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Saab. Yeah. The flipping round. It was just amazing that the explosion turned into ice. So many amazing elements in this. Visual elements, story elements, choreography, cinematography. Absolutely loved it, man. And then obviously the return to the airport as well, Stephen. But before that, obviously the sort of long expositional shots in the cargo as they make their way back. A lot of people don't like the way this story's handled. They find it to be befuddling. But I think they do their best here with the Neil character, who's a physics master. He's the sort of guy who tries to reveal what's going on here. He speaks about grandfather paradoxes and what will happen if the people from the future win. They seem to think it won't matter. They can throw their grandfather down the stairs, slit his throat and whatever else with no consequence. He's saying things like, does your head hurt? Go to sleep. And I think, I feel that no one handles that expositional stuff really well in this middle part of the movie. He reveals what the hell's going on if they're not successful at the end. And I just loved the quietness of that, the action of that car chase sequence to the sort of conversational expositional
the Neil character
stuff.
For me revealed more about the sort of plot than he did about himself in the film. And there was a reason for that. Obviously, we'll get to that at the very end, John. But it was handled well.
He's a sort of connective tissue in this movie as well, though. When you think about it, he is there at every point. Yeah, and he's connecting everything.
There is a suspicion, though, from the protagonist, John, that this guy's not everything that he's saying he is. Yeah. He's actually not saying too much. That's the problem. But there's a reason for that. We'll obviously get to that at the very end.
Suppression.
John. Yeah,
I think there's a line about suppression.
Yeah,
which was great. Yeah, they do. The expositional stuff happens. Return to the airport, Stephen. This is one of my standout sequences in the entire movie as well, just because it's crazy. They come out the ambulance. We have a sort of recurring shot of that fight sequence again from the opposite angle.
Yep.
And it's almost Bruce Lee shit, Stephen. Yeah. He's catching the punches, and you realise why this guy in the suit is able to sort of deal with him, because he's seen it before. Yeah. He knows what's coming in a sense. And it was just amazing seeing it. Seeing Neil running about, you see him seeing the protagonist and throwing the helmet back to him. He's getting blown out of the shutters. It's crazy the shit that's going on in this scene. It's hard to even discuss it, man. I can't... Stephen, I says this, man, and I post on a forum I actually post on. To have the balls and the sort of... the intelligence to come up with this... It befuddles me even speaking about it.
We talked
For
about
him to have that level of intelligence to think this up in his brain, will it into existence.
Put pen to paper.
We
talked about it after we left the cinema yesterday, on the way home. And, when I said Christopher Nolan wrote this film as well, and that's when you said that line. I don't know where you begin with something like that. You can have some great thoughts in your head. I'm not saying I've got some great thoughts in my head, up there with Christopher Nolan and anything like that. But sometimes you have some ideas in your own head that things you would like to see in a film, but you wouldn't know where to begin. You wouldn't know how to explain it, to other people, how you see this vision. I don't know if this was, the sort of definitive version we see. Obviously, it's come out in the film is what Christopher Nolan wanted from the conception of his thought. I don't know, but it's such it's such an interesting piece of storytelling, and the plot is simple once you've seen the film. But it's all, as you say, it's all these elements
try to speak
on the side. And I'm struggling just now, just try to explain it. And you're struggling as well, John.
Because there's three perspectives, Stephen.
Yeah.
Exactly, they're running into the building, they're passing themselves in the ambulance, running, leaving. And then you've got fighting sequences, they're getting blown out of doors, but it is so cool to watch.
It's like
it does befuddle you at times, but it's absolutely amazing. It's like Back
John,
to the Future.
I'll say another thing though. See when
Different
they were running
angles.
through that camera work from the out the ambulance with the what do you call one of those things? The stretcher on the wheels. Just the way they were running through the crowd, and I don't know if you want to talk about the sound mix or not, John. Yeah. But I thought the sound was absolutely amazing. That you could actually feel yourself in the chaos, if you like. I don't know if
heard the waves?
Sense.
When we were on the boats and stuff.
Yeah.
I will speak about the sound mixing briefly, because the first time I went to see the movie on Wednesday, I found some of the dialogue, certainly some of the expositional stuff, a little hard to hear. It was getting overshadowed or sort of overwhelmed by the music. No one likes to do this. He likes to mix his movies like this. It's deliberate. because he doesn't want you getting too caught up in the dialogue. He wants it to be a sort of immersive experience. You just envelop yourself in the world and become one with what's happening on the screen. People have criticised it because the dialogue in this movie is quite important to explaining what the hell's going on in this movie. The first time I seen it, did struggle to hear some of the dialogue. Second time, same theatre, different screening, different actual room. I don't know what you call it.
Could be a different mix.
I don't know if it's a different mix, but I heard the dialogue much more clearly the second time. So yeah, I can understand why that criticism. That is one criticism I probably do agree with. Sound mixing can be a little dodgy, depending on what theatre you're in, clearly, because the second time, as I says, it wasn't an issue, Stephen. But yeah, man, you're right. I mean, there's just so much going on in that sequence. It's crazy, but it's thoroughly enjoyable watching it. And he's now been vindicated for crashing the actual plane in, because I think a lot of that nuance would have been lost, Stephen, if you used CGI. The guy is a firm believer of in-camera shooting. Very marginal use of CG. He only uses it to slightly enhance what's going on in the screen.
Yeah.
And the actors, they sort of, how can I put it? They perform better because they're living in the actual moment. It's not a green or blue screen. They're interacting with things around about them, and it's clearly a much better way to go to your work, actually being there, doing things. You got McConaughey to actually go on a bit of wire work or something for the end of Interstellar. The people in Dunkirk were actually on beaches with real stuck of bombers coming down. So I appreciate what the guy brings to film. I think he's a sort of a blast from the past. He's not like Lucas, who's quite happy to fling a blue screen up and have the actors act in front of nothing.
George Lucas was always looking forward. That was the issue.
He's looking backwards, and I prefer this, Stephen.
Traditional.
I prefer that in-camera shooting with as much practical effects. Actual planes getting into buildings as possible. He's a traditional
filmmaker, John, but he's not a traditional writer.
No. Oh, he's not a no. He's ahead of his game big time, Stephen, when it comes to writing. What did you make? Because, I mean, we're speaking about this scene. It's mental, man. What did you make about the choreography, the mind-bending vision we spoke about of Nolan? I mean, it's just brilliance. But what did you make about Hoyt van Hoytema bringing it all to life, Stephen? This guy, I want to say he is an Oscar-winning cinematographer. I sincerely hope he is. But his work in this movie, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Some of the shots, the circling conversational shot I spoke about, the balcony shot, capturing all of this action, all of this inversion, all of the multi-perspective stuff. It is one of the best short movies I think I've ever seen in my entire life. It's right up there. It's
John,
beautiful.
I always thought after
on a technical level
that they wouldn't be able to top those kind of visuals in a Christopher Nolan film, but this is another level of visuals. You know, that's not taking anything away from Inception, which was very unique for its time. It's 10 years old now, that film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still fresh, you know, but there's something about the choreography in this film, the visuals, the sequences, the action sequences, that is, that I've never seen in film before. And as I mentioned, you know, previously, I thought they could have went down the lazy route. Christopher Nolan's not a lazy eye, so I don't know why I thought that, of just reversing film. It's nothing like that at all. It's mind blowing at times, and it does make it. I don't like a film to make me think too much when I'm watching a film and I'm missing the plot because of the technical aspects. But you can't help it in this film because it's something so unique. It's something that's never been done before, and it's really opened up the doors for other films to almost like the Matrix bullet time. That way the camera was shot. And goes around the character, which has been used time and time again. I think we're going to see a lot of carbon copies of this sort of, you know,
they'll
visuals.
not do it better than this, though. No chance. Not without the brilliance of a Nolan's mind. Not without the brilliance of a Hoyt van Hoytema behind the camera. This is a lightning in the bottle, Stephen. I don't think this will ever be topped, this concept. I mean, there's been lots of time inversion theories, time movies. People are hating on it, man. I'm not going to get into the haters. I'm sick and tired. We will get into it briefly later on. I'm going to get it off my chest. I'm a sycophant for Nolan, Stephen. You know the score with me. I love the guy. I love his movies. I think he's probably one of the greatest directors of all time. And he's certainly one of the great directors of modern day time. He's not made a bad movie. For me, he simply has not made a bad movie. But, I mean, what he's doing in this movie is just on another level. It really is. The dedication to shooting in camera, the marginal use of CG, circling stuff and all of that, the brilliance of the story, everything. I love it. But what I digress, we'll move on, man. I'm getting caught up in a sort of rant about Nolan and haters. We'll not go there quite yet.
No.
Performances, Stephen.
That's a
Who
difficult one.
was your standout performer? Can you pick a standout performer in this movie?
Oh,
was it
dear.
a group, maybe a couple? For me, I'll give you right off the bat who my standout performer was, and I'll give my reasoning for why. And I'm not saying the other ones were crap or anything like that, but for me, Pattinson is the best performer in this movie. His role's almost underwritten, Stephen.
Very
in
subtle,
certain regards. He's not getting the meatiest role. He's not on the camera all the time. That's John David Washington, really.
Yeah.
But he brings a humanity, a soul to the movie. He is the emotional core of this movie, alongside the Becky's cat character. And there is a theory going about, which we will touch on.
Yeah, this blows my mind.
Which kind of combines the two together. And I think that's why they are the heart and the emotional soul of this movie. But for me, Pattinson's just incredible in this.
John, it'd be very easy to go.
Sell.
Yeah, it'd be very easy to go with John David Washington because he carries the film.
And he's brilliant.
He does. From start to finish, he's the main guy, and there's not a dull moment with this character. Every scene he's in, every line he says, you're just hanging on to every word.
Who's in charisma?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's in it? Stephen, I didn't even know he was Denzel's boy.
John, I didn't know that till yesterday morning, and it wasn't.
I seen him in Black K Klansman. I didn't even know he was Denzel's.
But you can tell the mannerisms are, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Robert Pattinson for me as well, just because I was so taken aback how well he performed in this film.
Does it not excite you for the Batman, having watched this?
Yeah, I was going to say that, John.
What this guy's bringing to big blockbuster flicks like this, it tells me the guy's hitting it out the park. We've seen it from the trailer. He's got it sewn up, man.
John, this is a guy that 10 years ago was doing the Twilight films. He went off and did independent films, and
The Rover.
To be fair, not a lot of people know all these films that he was in for the last decade or so, and it wasn't really till, I would say, for me, I can only speak personally, for me, The Lighthouse is when I took notice of how good an actor this guy is. Seeing this film just goes to prove how good he is, how Matt Reeves sees him as Bruce Wayne as well, because there was a lot of backlash, let's be honest. There was a lot of backlash when he was cast, but Batman's previous for that anyway, with Keaton and Ledger, etc.
No one knows.
Elizabeth Debicki, John, was amazing in this film as well. How tall is that woman?
Tall. 6'3".
Unbelievable. It
She's
was
wearing
a kitchen scene for me.
Jesus
she
Christ.
was towering over everyone, but
she's even bigger than Pattinson. He's 6 foot.
Yeah, John, and it's funny, we've talked about these three actors, and this is a film that Kenneth Branagh's in, who has got more roles than these three other actors put together in his career. The man has never had, I don't think he's made a bad film as a director.
My first picture as a director.
But you know what, he does play second fiddle to these three other actors in my book anyway. But Robert Pattinson for me is definitely the standout.
Yeah, Stephen, I thought John David Washington was brilliant too, as the sort of protagonist, playing the protagonist. That's sort of Inception-ish shit going on there.
Yeah.
He's a primary protagonist, and his name is the protagonist. Just oozes charisma, the guy. He's so athletic. He brought a great performance to the screen. Debicki was brilliant. Again, joint heart and soul of the movie with Robert Pattinson's Neil character. Branagh was a great villain too. I loved him. And then we have the little sort of Hamish Patel character in there, and obviously Michael Caine making a pop up. But for me, Pattinson stand out. And Stephen, I'm going to touch upon Cat briefly here too. I'm going to get this off my chest as well. We've seen this shit coming out. And it's every single time there's a movie with a female that's not portrayed as superhuman. We get this shit.
Skywalker,
We got it in Ford v Ferrari with the handling of the wife. They were moaning about her portrayal. Absolutely ridiculous. This is a story about two male characters coming together, friends, and making something happen in Ford v Ferrari I'm talking about. And this, because she's portrayed as being a domestic abuse victim, they're saying that it's a shocking way that she's been marginalised in this movie. It's not fitting for her actor. Stephen, I thought this lent so much to this character. I thought the domestic abuse thing, it empowered her, and then to stand up to this guy who she was fearful of, being manipulated by, emotionally blackmailed by. I loved her arc. I thought she was handled really well.
I think I mean, her art went full circle, right from the beginning to the end. I felt the scenes with Debicki and Branagh on the boat at the end were very tense. Because you obviously seen the film before me, so you knew what was coming, but I didn't know what was going to happen, because this guy was always 3-4 steps ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's going to rumble her. He knows that she's playing him. But her nerve, the character, that is...
Wasn't it great, Stephen? Was that not one of the best moments in the movie
fantastic.
when she shoots him?
Yeah.
I'm not letting you have the satisfaction of thinking you've won.
Yeah. I would have done the same.
Shoots him in the chest.
But get back to the...
flings him off the boat.
You know, getting back to the whole domestic abuse stuff, John.
Yeah.
You can't have every woman character in the world being the same. You know, that's not real life. Unfortunately, John, domestic abuse exists. You know, and I thought it was a brave step as well, especially in today's society where, it's getting a backlash. So you can see why. But I don't agree with that.
Great performance.
She was fantastic. She was amazing in it. You know, just seeing her character develop through the film. We talked about the film not having much development. Her character did probably the most, I would say, out of them all. Yeah. And Elizabeth Debicki was fantastic in this film.
Stephen, she is the main driving force for the protagonist in this movie. He wants to make sure her and her son Maximilian are okay. Maximilian, and we'll get into it. There's a theory, and I'm buying into it big time, man. I'm on that bus for this theory, man. She's the main driving force in the movie. She's the emotional core. She got a great role, as you say. She was the best developed, probably, of any of the characters, and they're still moaning. Can't please these people. No. But Stephen, we're doing it. The finale of this movie, man. Shall I try and break it down?
Go for it, yeah.
Shall I try and tell you what I got out of this, and you can maybe interject if you disagree?
Okay.
Temporal pincer operations. Freeway multi-perspective ending. I loved it, man. I've said it's a mind F of monumental proportions. First time I seen it, not even going to pretend I got all of it. Second time, I think I've got it. It's called Tenet, Stephen, because it's 10. The end of the movie is a 10-minute operation. One inverted platoon, one normal platoon. We'll get into this here.
We've seen this before, haven't we?
We'll do Robert Pattinson's Neil character first. He starts from the end of the operation and works his way back to the beginning. Yeah. He takes a bullet to the head at the end, opening the door for his friend, the protagonist. Then he comes out of the chasm, takes these friends, get back in, he has a conversation with them, and then he goes back, pumps the horn, tries to warn them when they're going down the tunnel, goes on the helicopter. That's his scene done.
Yep. It's a bit more stretched out than that.
Yeah, it's a bit more stretched out. Ives and the protagonist work in real time from 0 to 10 minutes. Yeah. They come in, find the tunnel, booby-trapped, get locked, have the confrontation with Sator, says a different name again there.
Was that a henchman, wasn't it?
Yeah, the henchman. Yeah. The door opens up, he has his fight with him, gets his hands on the algorithm, gets pulled out with Neil, speaks to him round about the 5-minute mark in the operation, and then he goes back and he goes off and does what he does at the end of the movie. That is it.
Yeah, that
is the finale. Yeah. It's not that complicated.
I've only seen it once and understood that.
Yeah, inverted, going forward
but
time.
I say I understood it. I didn't understand it at the time. As I said, this is a film you will think about 2-3 hours after you've seen it, and it's that sequence that probably would confuse a lot of people watching it in real time. But once you think about it, it makes sense. It does all start to fit into place.
It's a very busy end sequence too, Stephen. You talk about impressive visuals. The scene when the building gets blown up from the bottom, builds itself and then gets blown up from the top, and it falls in the middle.
It's the 2 platoons, isn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. Amazing. And did you know when the car was getting pumped, the horn was getting pumped, that it was Neil trying to warn them about the booby trap?
I wasn't really sure, John. There was so much happening. So I'm going to say no. I think initial reaction is no. I think after there's a few scenes before that. I'm saying before it's after it. If you know what I mean. You piece it together and you went, I think that's Neil now. I think
because you see it from his perspective.
So you start to piece it together from his perspective. That's probably the best way to describe it. But it's not in obviously sequence. It's a confusing way to describe it.
It really is a confusing end.
Simple answer is no. I didn't know it was him.
No. And Stephen, also we have so much going on. We have Kat trying to hold off Sator's suicide, try to save the world in a sense. She does that to great effect. We spoke about it. She shoots him, throws him off.
The way his body hits the side of the boat as well, I was
amazing, isn't it? Because she's already fought ahead.
Did they drag his body in the sea as well? Yeah.
Put me in mind of Red Dead when you've lassoed and dragged someone. Brilliant, man. But Stephen, the conversation at the end, but it's the middle of the operation for these two people. It's the 5-minute mark, as I says.
Yeah.
People are saying this movie lacks an emotional core.
It was sad, John.
They say that it doesn't. It's distant. It's disconnected. I found it incredibly emotional when these two guys were speaking to each other, and he's saying to him, "Who started this operation? Then don't you know already? It was you. You did. This is the beginning of their friendship for you, but I feel it's the end for me." And he walks away. I thought that was incredible.
It was. Yeah.
The connection between these two characters throughout was brilliant. Right from the meeting Neil scene.
Yeah.
The music, the bond, you can sense a camaraderie, even though they're just starting out. There is more to the relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought it was an emotional moment for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was Neil. This is when he became. This is when he became quite a tragic character. I felt, because I accepted his own sort of fate as well. You know,
you
he
see
understood
the tag on the backpack as well, and that tells you.
That was clever. You know, again, visuals. It's just little clues like that sort of click and
you
make
see
things.
It in the opera scene at the start.
Yeah, and it's things like that make sense, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it was a great scene. Do you want to get into the theory before we talk about the final thoughts, John?
Yeah, we'll get into the theory, Stephen. Obviously, a lot of people have been theorising about this movie. One of the more prominent ones, and I'm absolutely on board, as I say, is that Max, the young boy, is in actual fact Neil.
Yeah.
Grown up, Neil's inverted back in time to have his meeting with the protagonist and help him out, saving the world in a sense. Obviously, Maximilian is a French name. You reverse it, the first 4 letters are Neil. You can't tell him it's Max because he would sort of piece it together, time travel and shit, inversion. Is this little kid? And that may give the game away and destroy any chance of saving humanity in a sense. I think this is bang on, Stephen. There's so many little mentions. When Kat speaks to the protagonist outside the school, he says to her, "It's a great kid you've got. He's everything." Hinting that he is everything. He's so important. It's Neil. He's the connective thread in this movie. He's obviously Sator says he's got a great education. Neil's got a master's in physics. He's got blonde hair. The little kids get blonde hair. For me, Neil is definitely Max. I think they're right. Again, it's another level of convolutedness, if you like. Another level of brilliance from Nolan. Just flinging that in. He knows people like to dissect his movies. He knows that there's ambiguity, I can never say that word, surrounding his movies. And I feel like this theory is absolutely bang on. And that is why I think Pattinson and Debicki are the emotional core of this movie. Their characters are so important because it's the little kid and the woman, the domestic abuse. Sator's the antagonist. He's using them as a puppet master. And they are in the end key to defeating him and saving humanity. I think that's brilliant.
There's also that there's a sense of irony as well, John, that Neil actually, he's coming from the future, and he actually saves, if that theory is correct, he actually saves his mother's life. Yeah. So,
and he saves himself.
Yeah, he saves himself.
And he saves humanity.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful, and it's so known. It's so intelligent. People are saying that it's a crap story, that it doesn't work, it's distant, it's emotionless.
Yeah.
These people are talking out their arses,
John,
Stephen.
These people are just trying to be outrageous.
No,
and
Stephen,
different.
I'll tell you what it is right now. They're just not intelligent enough.
I thought you were going to use a sweary word there, John.
They're just not intelligent enough, Stephen. They don't understand the storytelling. They don't understand this man's great cerebral way of making movies. They're just not ahead of the curve, like the Joker, in a sense. We are ahead of the curve. I'm just going to act like I'm more intelligent than everyone else. There you go. And I get it. And that's why it's emotional for me. That's why I connect to these characters. It's not that I'm a Nolan sycophant. It's just that I'm right and these people are wrong. And that's it. End of story. Stephen, I mean, we've spoke about the bullshit about an unemotionally distant movie. Yeah. It's an absolute nonsense, man. I thought he balanced the thriller, time reversal, quantum war film stuff with the introspective, quiet little personal moments beautifully. Yes. The story wasn't overcomplicated for me. It's all nonsense. I love the theories. Yada, yada, yada. Before we get into our final thoughts, what did you make about the final shot when I think he says to her, what does he says it? He says again, posterity. Posterity. He tells the cat character to phone him, state their time and the address, and she says, who'll come? Posterity. Obviously, Priya is ready to shoot Kat outside the school gates. He sits in the car and he lets her know, because there's little back and forths prior about him being a fresh-faced protagonist, but he's not the protagonist. And he goes back into the car and says, look, I've now discovered that it's me to set all of this thing in motion. I am the protagonist and I'm cleaning up loose ends. He shoots her. It was beautiful. I loved it.
I liked
Even
it.
though
Priya isn't
the ultimate bitch in the movie, but she's a bit of a bitch. and she deserved what she got.
Yeah.
She was a user and a conniver, and I loved it.
I totally agree, yeah.
Stephen, no, final thoughts on the movie, man. Before we round up this review, it's been hard work, man, trying to discuss a movie like this. I could speak for 5 hours.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been speaking twice as quick as I normally do. Try and get this
I think so, John. I think
condensed
there's
into
so much
1 hour
to cover, you know. And
I could do 3 hours easy.
But, you know, my final thoughts, I've only seen the film once. I know you've seen it twice now. You've probably picked up on a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
But seeing that film for the first time, what I understood was the plot was very simple. You know, it's all the elements that surround it that make it look more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
Visually, I think that's where people struggle with the, you know, the inversions and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, especially as you know, that sort of final sequence. But you know, as a Nolan film goes, it's up there with the best of them, I feel.
Yeah.
It's certainly a film I do want to go and see again. I probably maybe need a few weeks away from it first, just to get myself into that mindset again. But
I dived in 5 days later.
John, I tell you something, when I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know how you could do that, you know, in that short space of time, because there's so much information going on. But it's a Chris Nolan film. We always say his films are event films, you know, and this certainly was a big event, and it was great to be back in theatre again.
Stephen, I completely agree. For me, it lived up to my expectations and more. I thoroughly enjoyed it from just about every aspect of a film going experience. The cinematography was sublime, the visual elements was sublime, the incredible cerebral story was brilliant for me. It was so Nolan. I love the guy. He's completely unique. He takes things on, takes concepts on, or creates concepts and wills them into existence that no other director would even touch with a barge pole. They wouldn't do it. And that's why I love going to see the guy's movies. That's why he brought me out in the midst of a pandemic into a theatre with a mask on for 2.5 hours, not once but twice, not drinking, not eating. That's why I done it, because that's why I done it, because of Nolan and what this guy brings. He's such a unique voice in this time, in this age, and that's why I sincerely hope this movie makes at least $400-500 million to earn a profit. It deserves it, man.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know where I would rank it in Nolan movies, but it's probably in the top 5 for me. I rank it that highly. I know some people, it's all subjective. I joked about people hating on it and whatnot. All that is subjective and all that jazz. Some people will hate it, some people will love it, some people will merely like it or dislike it. For me, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved it. Don't know where I'd rank it, and that's going to round up my thoughts on it, man. So, what the hell do you guys make about Tenet, Chris Nolan's Tenet? Did you go and see it in the theatres? Are you going to wait until this pandemic blows over, until it comes out in VOD on, I don't know, man, whatever it's coming out in home release, before you watch it? What is your thoughts on the trailers if you haven't seen it? There you go, you can maybe join in. You should be watching this if you haven't watched it. It's a spoiler review. So you can share your comments below, guys, what your thoughts were on this movie. What was your favourite scene? Standout performer? Did you find the story to be too complicated, convoluted, whatever the hell you want to use, which word? You can comment below and let us know what your thoughts are down below. Anyway, and you can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and you can subscribe the channel if you want to see us discussing more movies in the future. There's some big releases coming out. Lord knows I think we'll be doing Mulan, Stephen, shortly. I've not seen it yet, but I will. And if you do, you'll see us back reviewing movies, talking about movie news and doing reactions, guys. But look, until then, bye-bye. No, not bye-bye, because we can't get this to work. 2 seconds, guys. No, still not working. There you go. Bye-bye.